Welcome to tonight's episode of Myths and Stories. We are continuing our journey through the Marasena and the story of the Awoken as a whole. Last time, we left everybody on the kind of cliffhanger of Mara floating outside the Exodus Green, otherwise known as Yang Liwei ship, as the light and dark energies were clashing together, causing this black hole, this singularity to form. And she was diving headlong into it because she wanted to be first. So that is where we're picking up from tonight.
I like how you say kind of a cliffhanger. Because it's like rewatching an old rerun episode, right? Like you know who shot JR, but you still get to the episode and you're just like, yeah, I want to know who shot JR. That's an old 80s reference, 90s reference to the show Dallas Kids. So if you have no idea what we're talking about, it's because I'm old.
Yes, you are. So, something I want to talk about from last time, though, before we get into continuing the Marasena, there was a piece that we kind of we read, but I think we breezed over a little bit, and I want to go back and readdress it before continuing onwards. And
Sure.
this is back from part 3, which is entitled Pt.2. And I'm not going to reread the whole thing, but the section in particular is this one. It says, Mara is cool with this because she feels like words are a very bad system of encryption, and that if you really want to communicate with someone, you must develop your own special one-to-one crypto system. The ideal statement, Mara feels, would be indecipherable to anyone but the person it's spoken to, and even then, only if they know you are the one speaking. So I wanted to point this out because this is a really apt example of Mara's whole idea around secrets and truths and communication, and why she never seems to give anyone a straight answer about anything most of the time.
Ever. No, there's no most of the time about it. She will never give you a straight answer. The entire season of The Lost, the whole time, I'm just like, what in the hell are you talking about, Mara?
Yeah, so she sees words, she sees the spoken word as a poor form of communicating thought because it can be so I guess corrupted, misconstrued. Like it is very easy for the receiver to not get the true intention or value of the words of the sender, and it is very easy to if you play the game of telephone, like it's very easy for that message to become different depending on who it's coming from, even if it's on behalf of the original sender.
Absolutely. Because each iteration of that gets its own new personal interpretation of the previous one.
Yep.
And therefore gets the next little kind of spin on it, like well, and that's like almost using like each person as a thesaurus, right? Like they'll use a word that's very similar to what was said, but it maybe has a slightly more intense meaning or maybe a less intense meaning. So by the time you get to the final portion, by the time you get to the final recipient of the message, now it just has a whole nother feel to it. And I definitely think that's what's with Mara. Like she has that whole, I like how she described it there, where like it's just a poor way of communicating, and to have this true communication is to create that one-to-one crypto system, to where even if two people could be saying the exact same message, and if you don't have the crypto system for both of them, then that message is going to be different between the two of them to the recipient.
Yeah. Yep. So very, very important piece of Mara's personality that I think carries forward even into her interactions in the game now. So I wanted to bring some more attention to that. But yeah, so moving on, we are going to be starting tonight with section 9 of the Mara Senna, which is entitled Extasate 1. I'm guessing on that.
They're just making up words at this point. The first couple of times it was like, okay, we gotta Google this. Now Bungie's just straight up making up words.
Well, I did Google this. So,
Nice.
extasate, as far as I could tell, just means to cause to enter a state of ecstasy. So there you go.
That feels pretty straightforward. I feel like we could have deduced that.
Yeah, but you never know. So
you never know. Hey,
we made
words are a poor way of communication, right?
Exactly. Like... Especially when you don't know what the hell they are.
I like this. Mm-hmm. I love it.
All right. So chapter 9. Again, this is the chapter immediately after Mara dives headfirst into this black hole, presumably followed by the ship and everyone else in it. And it goes like this. To occur the unhappened world, to grip glass-hooped eternity in blood-slick hands, and snap it from its circle. Know her as the flaw, the isotropy, the spike that pierced eternal recurrence and made the wound of time. Tautologies end on her fingertips in the crease between skin and nail. Name her Alilia, Bruth Captain. Begin with her this subcreation. First, a mandala, rings of rippled light, pinpricks like stars, selected elements of a lie group, the math skeleton of this new place. What is this? Where am I? A sheet of paper, blank with static, her hands flat upon the face, a plasma of quarks and electrons so hot and bright that it is pitch black. The mean free path is too short for photons to travel. The fire is too thick for light. She has been here forever. Alila, the end is the beginning, is the end. She folds the paper into space and time. Now that there is light, she can read the paper, and she finds that it is the Amrita Charter. Sun is the cradle of life, but we cannot remain in the cradle forever. She was a seeker, the eye of Alila, the arrow that points to a new world. She sought new sun, new earth. Her mind passes across the words like a comb. Word becomes world. Paper folds under nimble hands, the sting of a paper cut. So God may yet be surprised. From that cut her blood scatters through the void, and the isotropic universe nucleates around the droplets. I am Alela, the guiding principle. Bend the center. I am Alisila, the arrow of time, sinuous but progressing. I am Elisili, one step forward, one element changed. This is how the world clock ticks, by the letter-wise permutation of secret names. I am Alice Lee, the coalescence into entities, the compaction of drifting fire into sun and world. I am Alice Lee, the power that seeks new worlds. I have a crew. I had a ship. I wanted to bring them to a place like a paradise world, twin-ringed, impossible beauty, and a sky milk bright with stars. She makes it real with a thought, and in that thought she falls herself, undoes her transient divinity, binds herself and all those after her into the law. The omniscient cannot explore. The omniscient cannot struggle. She refuses that God trap. This is how Alice Lee awakens. That's the end of that chapter.
Dude, this is just this is metaphor on top of metaphor. Like this is a fucky chapter. That's all there is to it.
It is. It is. What is attempting to be described here is the concept of the consciousness that was Captain Alice Lee in the Soul System has entered this new space where the rules of this pocket universe have not been made yet. And she is just this kind of floating, omniscient awareness that has complete control over this space and therefore has been able to designate the laws of this pocket universe and also create the things within this pocket universe, because she was the god of this universe for a time.
That's a crazy thought too. Like, I mean, when we're talking about creating the law, we're talking like the laws of physics, the laws of math, the laws of reality. Like, this space is literally being created. Imagine if you had a box, right? And there's nothing inside of it. And you have complete mental control over everything inside that box. And you decide, I don't want 2 plus 2 to equal 4 in there anymore. Whenever we enter this box, 2 plus 2 equals 5. So from now on, for the rest of eternity, inside that box, 2 plus 2 equals 5 now. Outside the box, it still equals 4. Like it's the part of our material world, but inside that box, anything in your consciousness is made reality. Like it's crazy. It's a really crazy concept. And I like the analogy of like the paper and like the the palindrome written on the paper. A lilia. That one's a hard one to
Alilia.
say.
So Alilia. So the same forward as it is backwards.
Yep. And then it slowly shifts. Like
Mm-hmm.
she bends the center. That I turns into an S. And so now it starts shifting more and more and more until she finally realizes, maybe not realizes, but she creates herself. She creates Alice Lee. The consciousness of Alice Lee creates Alice Lee in this pocket universe. And then and I think the most important thing is at the very end, the omniscient cannot explore, and the omnipotent cannot struggle.
Yep.
She refuses that God trap. So she straight up, like, again, if your consciousness inside this box can make it anything you want, you can be invincible. You can be a god. You could literally be a god inside that box. But she refuses that. And I think that refusal is a big issue, obviously way later on in the story, but I think that's a big one to point out here.
Yeah, that is absolutely something to keep in mind, because it's gonna become a bigger part as we read later chapters. But yeah, she creates the universe, and then realizes that she can't have the thrill of being an explorer as she was before, because if she's omniscient, she knows everything that's in the universe at the moment it's created. She can't work towards anything, because if she's omnipotent, she can do anything in that universe. And so she makes the conscious decision that after she has created the universe and the rules of physics that govern it, to remove herself and all that follow her from godhood, and have to live as corporeal beings that will need to explore and research and understand and struggle to live in this new place.
God, I love it. I love it.
So, similar to how Alice Lee came about, went from this kind of swirling consciousness. You could almost say soul, if you want to attribute that word to it.
Ooh. We,
Um,
are we are we going there?
no, no, but to be a reference,
I like it.
and we're gonna see that she is not the only one in that state, and we get with chapter 10, which is Extasate 2. Another familiar figure goes through something of a similar process, and it goes like this. She was nothingness. If she existed before, then she existed only as a possibility stretched across the ether. Once there might have been a body that was an anticipation of the body not yet formed, and a soul that was an anticipation of the soul not yet encrypted, but they were not yet real. Then the universe began, and she was free to be born. First, there is a mandala, and upon the rings of that mandala there are star-bright gems. Mararam, the closed symmetry, secret within itself, and she cuts it off center so that it is imperfect, open at one end, not cycling back to its own beginning, but subliming away into future possibility. Mara, the permutation of one relationship into another. Ma become Ra. Ra become what may yet come. 2 points suggesting a line. And with that amputation around that scar, she incarnates, awakens with a gasp, cold stone under her shoulders and back, and a face above her, radiant. Mara, the face says. What am I? Mara whispers. The second, the woman says. I am Alice, and I think you were Mara. The sky behind Alice blooms with stars, a haze of light like sun through mist, richer than a galactic core, and across the night sky arches the impossible twin shape of a double planetary ring. Mara gapes in wonder. I remember, she says. I was on the tether. But the sudden need to keep this memory secret shuts her mouth. We're on a world, she says instead. How long have you been alone? Forever, I think. Come. She draws Mara to her feet. I want to show you what I've found. It is a world that grows, a world that thrives. The stone is rich with vines of platinum, and Mara tastes tingling inclusions of transuranic elements in a fingertip of earth. Silver rivers flow in fractal deltas to lakes as still and bright as coolant pools. Acres of forests all woven at the root into a single tree. There is life of such variety and energy that each new crawling thing they see must be its own species. Or species do not mean anything at all here, and all that lives may intermingle. Jutting from the horizon, they find a titanic metal spear. The head of the spear is a metal dish, kilometers across, buried in bedrock. I don't know what this is, Alice says. I only know that it is mine. They pass inside. There should be others, Mara says afterwards. There was room for others. Thousands of others. Where are they? They're in the same place you came from. We have to make them real. Lee stares at Mara, and coruscations of white fire map the tiny lines and furrows of her skin. Her bright eyes narrow. Why were you the second? Why you in particular? I don't know, Mara lies. And it is the first lie ever told, and the first secret ever kept. And that's the end of that chapter.
Again with this metaphorical. I love it. I absolutely love it. I really do. The whole idea, the Mararam, like another palindrome, and it makes me think of when she described the singularity, right? Like all futures, the slope is going so high that it's actually bending back on itself. So future forward becomes synonymous with future, and so it just loops back on itself. And it, again in that math sense, I guess, she cuts it off in half, makes it imperfect, cuts the circle. Just this makes it to where it is a non-complete loop, becoming Mara. Ma being one part, Ra being the second part. Now you have 2 points. Now you have a line. Now you have direction. Now you have a vector. Like it's. I love the math analogies in here. They make the little engineer in me go wee.
And it's interesting, like, yeah, just the naming is so important to them. It is like
Yeah.
the name they pick is somehow informing their identity as they, you know, become part of this world.
Yeah. And I think not just their identity, like everything about them, like
Mm-hmm.
what they are, what their meaning of life is, like what their drive is, like literally every single thing about them starts with that name. And it's oh, I love it. I absolutely love it. And then of course Mara's awoken by the person standing over her. She shows her this beautiful, gorgeous pocket universe. Like it just everything about it is the most. It's just beautiful. Like there are it. I like to think of it as I hesitate to say utopia, but that's as close as I can come to it. But everything is truly just beautiful and perfect and amazing and just needs to be explored. And then there's this giant metal spear in the middle of it that they can go inside, and they're like, what is this? And even Alice Lee is like, I don't know what it is, I just know it's mine.
Yeah, and they recognize that it has space for thousands of other people,
Thousands.
and that those people need to manifest in the same way
They need to be
do.
made real. Yeah.
So that brings us that the Alice Lee asks Mara, why were you the second? Why you in particular? And Mara tells the first lie ever told and keeps the first secret ever kept and tells her, I don't know.
And now shit's gonna get funny. All right. Chapter what chapter?
Chapter 11. But
Okay.
just keep it in the back of your head as we're going through these. The fact that that's a lie and that she's keeping a secret means that Mara knows why she was second, but she also knows that she doesn't want Alice Lee to know why she was second. And she also stopped herself from recalling her last memory before being awoken. So just remember all that.
All these little things. It's I'm so excited.
So okay, chapter 11 goes like this. 2 became 4, and the 4 called out, and so the 4 became 8. In this manner, conjured forth by their doubling, the sleepers did awaken. In time, the awoken spilled across the face of the world, and their number was 40,891. They drank of the sweet rain, and they ate of the fruit of the forest, and the starlight pooled as clear oil on their skin. First of their tongues was speech, and the first of their hunting weapons was the bow. Now the awoken called out for a name to distinguish world from unworld. The 891 said to the 40,000, let this world be named Tributary, for we dream of a great river from which we have parted. But the 40,000 were troubled, and they asked to know their antecedent, the place from which they came. We did not awaken from the sleep that we entered, said the 40,000. In our rest we passed through some terminus, and our atavism was severed from us. How did it happen thus? So a council was called at the place where the rivers met to determine the nature and purpose of existence. Here was undertaken the first census, which counted 30,111 women, 10,295 men, and 485 otherwise. A fear arose among the Awoken that the men and otherwise would be lost. Alice Lee spoke first in council, but at the urging of Aldrin, many sought out Mara for secret conclave. Among these were Kelda Waj, who would be the all-teacher, and Celia, who would be mother of Isilia. Saith Alice, we were granted this world by a covenant with high powers, and in that covenant we yielded our claim to our history. We abandoned what came before, but in doing so we cast off all our debts. Look forward. Let us explore this infant cosmos and revel in its glories. Against her spoke Awumi An, who was of the 40,000. We are alien here, said Awumi. We must climb up our world line back to the place from which we came. I call for a vote. Saith Mara in secret. I think that we came here as safe harbor, and we cannot forever remain. I remember the danger was appalling. I remember we were born in death. I think that we must gather ourselves carefully until the time is right. From this council, there arose 8 verdicts and a 9th. First, that the people were awoken, and that they were immortal. Second, that this world was tributary of another, but that it was forbidden to seek any way to rejoin the mother stream. For this reason, it would be called the Distributary, for that was the proper name for a river which branches from the mother and does not return. Third, that the Awoken should multiply in wombs of flesh and machine, but only after the most careful forecast of population and ecology, and only under the supervision of those who knew the good technology, for each new child would be immortal. Fourth, that those wise in the good technology should be heralded and heeded, so that the technology could be reserved. They would be Utex. Fifth, that the women should hold care and protection of the men and the others until more could be born. Sixth, that the purpose of the Awoken should be to know and love the cosmos. Seventh, that the Awoken were created out of covenant with light and darkness, but the covenant was complete, and no further debt would ever be called, except the duty of the second verdict to remain distributary. Eighth, that the Awoken were whole in themselves, and that they existed in balance. Ninth, that there would be no vote, but instead, Alice Lee would be recognized as queen. Her first pronunciation was that there would be no secrets among the Awoken. For Alice knew of the quiet council around Mara, and although she was neither jealous nor afraid, she remembered it carefully as a spark which might catch. That's the end of that chapter.
So this one is this is kind of like the true beginning of the Awoken. Like
Yep.
the previous 2 is like the creation of this pocket universe, and we now have a name for it. It's they're calling it the Distributary. But I'll get to that because I want to go through these 9 verdicts kind of individually. But yeah, like they've got basically it's interesting the numbers that they mention here because it's 9 short of the total number of crew and people that were on board the ship.
Yep.
And I there's how do I go about this? There are some thoughts, maybe not thoughts. There are some uh possibly incorrect conclusions that are drawn there, that those 9 missing that's the whole of the 9. Like when you talk to Zur in the tower, he's like, I am of the 9, or da 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 da. And then there's the thought that maybe those 9 are the souls of the planets, because there's 9 planets in our universe, but then Pluto's a dwarf planet now, so he's not a real planet, and we're just on Earth making fun of him. Not the point. It's just interesting that there are 9 missing from the total number. And I've never done this before to actually figure this out. I've never done the math to see if the duplication trick, because they're spawning, 2 become 4, 4 become 8, 8 become 16.
Mm-hmm.
I've never followed that all the way through to see if it ends 9 short of 40,900. Because if it does, then that's clearly why that there are 9 missing. So that may be. I tell you what, we've got an assignment for all of you listeners. Do some math for us, and hit us back on Twitter with the answer to that. So Alice Lee's up there. They've got kind of there's still kind of the separation between like crew member and I almost want to call him cargo.
I mean, they kind of were at the
right?
time. Like,
there's still this separation between crew member and frozen people, in this new space, and they have the 2 kind of ideas there. They have Alice Lee that's like, this place is perfect. This is utopia. Like we're done. This is it. This is our reward, or this almost like this is our answer for crying out to the entity that was attacking our ship. Like,
yeah.
the entity recognized us. This is where it sent us. We're here now. Full stop. Good for us. We did the thing. But then like the crew, the frozen people, the 40,000, they're like, no. We need to get back. We need to get back where we came from. This is a false paradise. And even Mara's like, well, maybe we're just here for a bit. Maybe we just gotta kind of, get our footing, and this is kind of like a safe haven, like a little safe harbor, and we'll head back when we can. So yeah, that's I love this space. And then the 9 verdicts. Like,
It's pretty much their 10 commandments.
absolutely. Absolutely. People are awoken, they're immortal. They're immortal in the sense that they will never die of old age.
Yes.
They are not like completely immortal. Like if I run up and stab one, light's not going to pour out of him, and he's just going to laugh at you going, ha 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 ha, and then it just instantly heals. No, they can still die. They just don't. They will live forever, essentially.
Yeah, it takes an outside action
Yeah.
for them to die.
And it's another interesting thing too that I think was mentioned in the previous entry, was like, how long have we been here? And even Alice Lee is like, forever. Like, so I mean, this is a long ass time to create. Apparently, it takes a hot second to create a universe.
Right?
I've never
Yeah.
created one, so I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, from Alice's point of view, it's kind of like that she started with the universe. So like the concept of forever is for as long as this universe has been going, which is kind of hard to wrap your head around.
That is. I love it though. Like I love all the philosophy in all this stuff. It's the whole naming thing, the whole like your thought, your being, your existence begins with the idea of a name, a closed loop, and then it slowly, like, you as as a soul, and thoughts and ideas push that name into something. One crinkles the paper a little bit in the center and it becomes an S. The other one cuts it off. It makes it a hard stop to where now it's a point. Like, I love those analogies. I really do. But yeah. So then we have the second verdict. This place is called Distributary, because it's the whole like a river that doesn't like a tribute. And I'm not much of a geologist. Myth, do you have any geology background?
Nope, can't say I do.
Nope. So the whole like the river that doesn't return back is a distributary. I always thought that like, oh yeah, because tributaries would feed the mother river,
Yeah, I
right?
think
Like,
that's what they're saying. Like tributary is a branch that eventually rejoins. Distributary is a branch that never rejoins the main river.
that like breaks off the main river and
Yeah.
becomes its own river.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, the third one here is one that intrigues me a lot. Third, that the Awoken should multiply in wombs of flesh and machine, but only after the most careful forecast of population and ecology, and only under the supervision of those who knew the good technology, for each new child would be immortal. That's an interesting thought. So they're even thinking about things like not necessarily population control, but I mean they got to
I mean,
feed all these
kinda.
people,
Yeah, like
right? Like this is absolutely like how how do you, as much as this is a utopia, we still got to feed everyone. We still got to bathe everyone. We still got to house everyone. Like there's only so much room here.
right. We don't want
Presumably,
to
there's only so much
we don't
room
want to use up the resources of this place, of this
on
utopia.
on day one. You get to utopia and you're just like, what do you want to do? Fuck till there's no tomorrow. No, 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 no. We can't do that. So even the people have realized that you can't do that in a utopia. I love that thought now. I love that idea.
It's also interesting that they're putting so much reverence behind what they are calling UTECs, which is
Yeah.
EUTECHS, which are the people that understand how to use this technology from their former world. And
Well, and that's what I was going to ask. Is the whole UTech, is that everything that they found in this ship, or I say ship, inside this metal spear? Is that,
I
do we know if that's what they're
assume
referencing?
so, that's where it came from. They're pretty unclear with how much memory people have of their time as a human after being awoken, because in Alice Lee's case, it sounds like, at least initially, she didn't have memory of her time, or it was fuzzy at maybe, because she said,
Sure.
I think you were Mara. So it might be that
Oh
like
yeah.
it's there but she's looking at it from 1,000 miles away kind of feel.
Sure.
So maybe some people have a little better grasp on their memory. Maybe it's a thing where over time it becomes, something that they can access more.
And that's an interesting thing that you say there too, because Mara was almost exact in what was happening when she was like, I was tethered, and then cuts herself off.
Oh yeah, no, she knew, like, within moments of being reawoken, what had transpired leading up to her reawakening.
That's going to be an interesting thing. That's going to be another little like, keep that in the back of your mind
Yeah.
when you're listening to this, because this is that's important.
So there's actually a section that I thought was here that does not appear to be here, and I cannot find it doing searches online. So I don't know where this is, but I promise I'm not making it up. There was a portion that I remember when I was going through this last time, where Aldrin or Aldwin at the time wasn't able to manifest himself. He was that floating consciousness out in the ether, and all the other Awoken were manifesting, and he was trying but wasn't able to do it himself. And Mara had to actually reach out metaphysically and like pull him into existence as Aldrin. And
interesting.
I bring that up because I think it's important to recognize that like this is another moment where his sister kind of saved him. but he actually references, or I should say, the Nightmare of Aldrin actually references this in, I believe, it was the first Sever mission of this
Oh,
this
no
current
kidding.
season, where he's trying to get jabs in at Aldrin, at Crow, I should say.
The nightmare is trying to get jabs in at Crow,
Yeah, the
right?
Nightmare is trying to get jabs at Crow, and this is when you're in the Sever mission and you can see them behind like that glass panel about halfway through the mission.
Right. Yep.
One of the dialogues is the Nightmare of Aldrin telling Crow something on the lines of like, you know, you wouldn't be able to handle things as well as the Guardian. Remember, Mara had to pull you in at the Distributary, otherwise you wouldn't be here. Like something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing. But the Nightmare specifically referenced needing assistance to awaken.
Interesting.
So that is what the Nightmare was talking about. I thought it was in this section.
I thought so too, because they literally just jump right into like they start naming off people. They're like, Alice Lee spoke first in council, but then at the urging of Aldrin, just out of nowhere, like who the hell is Aldrin? Aldrin is Old Win. Many sought out Mara for a secret conclave. Among those were Kelda Waj, who became the All Teacher, Celia, who would be the mother of Asilia. Like they're just naming people off rapid fire. Like holy shit, I get that we are multiplying exponentially, but give me a charter real quick. Let me start writing names down.
Yeah, so I don't know, and like I said, I was doing some quick searching here. I can't find where that specific scene came from. I'm 99% sure it's out there. I just cannot for the life of me find it. Maybe we'll stumble upon it elsewhere as we go on.
Or we got some more homework for our listeners.
Do our research for us and get back to us.
Do our job for us. But no, seriously, like if y'all know what we're talking about, if y'all know the entry, if it's on like a ship or a ghost shell or something in game, and somebody right now is probably listening to this going, it's on blah 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 blah, and we're just like, yeah, we don't have a clue. Yeah, shoot it at us in our Twitters.
Yeah, I will keep looking, but if you do happen to know where that's on, feel free to let us know, and we'll include that next time around. But
yeah.
But yeah.
So we got the UTEX. Fifth, the women should be the care because the women outnumber the men right now.
Yep.
So men are kind of like the housekeepers, which I'm okay with this as a personal housekeeper. I enjoy my life as a housekeeper. Does that mean I'm awoken?
I mean, whatever you gotta tell yourself.
That's what it's all about. I mean, that's literally how the Awoken came to be.
Yeah, you're not wrong. They thought themselves back into existence.
Well, there you go.
But yeah, so reverence for technology, very much a separation between where they came from and where they are, and that they hold no debt to be paid to where they came from. Like,
yep.
that transaction is completed and they are now separate from it forever.
Yep.
And that they would recognize Alice Lee as the queen of the Awoken.
Yep. And then the queen's proclamation there, and you paused because I looked at the word too, and I was like, did they mean to put proclamation? But no, it says pronunciation.
Yeah.
There would be no secrets among the Awoken. That right there, again, leading back to the previous entry where Mara says the first lie and the first secret kept. I don't know how I got here. I don't know why I was second. I don't know. And then even in that last paragraph, for Alice knew of the quiet council around Mara, and although she was neither jealous nor afraid, she remembered it carefully as a spark that might catch. So I think even Alice Lee is starting to gain. I like that idea of like gaining back your memories. It's almost like she's remembering that cult of personality that Mara had on the Exodus ship, and so she's seeing that same cult of personality happen here, and she's like, okay, it was kind of dangerous then, but it wasn't bad. Here, this is a utopia. We're literally thinking beings into existence. That's a dangerous thing to have in a utopia, is this cult of personality.
Yep. No, absolutely. So she knows I need to keep an eye on Mara.
Yeah.
And she makes this very public, you know, there will be no secrets amongst the Awoken. And that's her very first act as the queen of these immortal peoples.
I'm curious if like at that meeting, like Mara's they're all all the people are there and she's having their first proclamation and she just dagger eyes right at Mara the whole time. There will be no secrets. And just stares her down like that's yeah.
I choose to believe that's how it went. Yeah. Just like, talking about you right there.
I'm talking about you.
But so keep in mind, she made this claim of there will be no secrets amongst the Awoken, and now we're going to go into the next chapter. This is chapter 12, which is Fideicide 1. And like all of these titles, I'm going to I looked up Fideicide. It is a breaker of one's word or trust, also known as a faith destroyer.
Ooh.
So this chapter goes like this. In those days, there was a great birth of adventure among the Awoken. Hunters and pioneers sought the shape of the world. Sailors charted the skein of rivers and the perimeter of seas, and astronomers plotted the motion of the crowded heavens. Over this age ruled Queen Alice Lee, whose work was the creation of agriculture and the preservation of the U technology which she deciphered from the ship spire. But there remained in the forests one tribe of huntresses who preferred their light-footed freedom from comfort and duty to the painstaking surplus of the city. Among these tribes Mara lived with her brother, whose name had returned as Aldrin, and with Osana, their mother. It was said that Osana lived as a negotiator, and that her son brought her news from other tribes, for he was a scout and a hunter of renown. But Mara dwelt alone on a mountaintop. In the tribes of the forests and the sea, there was the belief that the Awoken had been made out of a friction between contesting forces, and that one day this conflict would need to be resolved. These were the Ichilists, who preached that Awoken owed a debt to the cosmos. But in the cities they lived by the seventh verdict under their queen, and they said that the Awoken had been created by cosmic gift and carried neither responsibility nor eschaton. Eschaton? These were the sanguine, who preached that the Awoken were as stable as an atom of carbon. Now there arose among the Echolists a woman out of the 891 who called herself the Diasarim. She went into the cities calling out, I accuse the queen of deicide, and when she was questioned, she spoke of a foundational crime. Alice Lee was the first to awaken in this world, the Diasarim preached. She set the terms of our existence. We could have been gods free of want or suffering, but Alice Lee chose our mortal form. Our queen is complicit in all the pain we experience. The queen murdered all our unborn godheads. At the thought that the queen without secrets had kept this most appalling secret to herself, the sanguine city folk were deeply troubled. And thus began the Theodicy War. And that's the end of that chapter.
So this one brings up a very obviously this is a very touchy, borderline dangerous subject of religion. We essentially have two different types of thoughts. The one from the Echolist that says the Awoken we need to, we still owe a debt. So they're def and again I maybe not religion, maybe more political. than religious. It seems kind of like a borderline of both, like a little bit of both.
Yeah, a little bit of both. I can see
Um,
that.
so you have this one group that says we still owe a debt to the cosmos. Like this we almost looking at the distributary and their existence as like as much as a gift this is, we still need to complete the debt. We still need to pay it back. Like there's still the debt there. And then you have the city dwellers,
The
who
sanguine.
are the sanguine, and they're like, no, no, no. Seventh verdict says otherwise. We owe no debt to nothing. Like this is paradise. This is we out the queen called out, asked for a pardon. The entity that was attacking us gave us a pardon. We're good. So now you've created conflict, right? Like anytime you have two opposing ideas, whether they be political or religious or whatever, conflict will arise. It's that's just how conflict starts. And this I love this scene here at the end where the essentially the speaker for the Eccleist walks into the city and just points at the queen and just, I accuse you of deicide. And then the logic behind it. Well, the queen created this entire universe. She could have made us gods. Why didn't she make us gods? If this was our, you know, i- if there is no debt to be repaid, then this should be the final existence. Like this should be paradise. This should be essentially heaven, right? Like this should be the final thing. Like we should be gods here. Why are we not gods? And so to accuse her of deicide, which is the killing of gods, um, and just be like, boom. And so now war, the Odyssey War.
And it's especially potent, I guess, or personal for most of the citizens here, because it's not she's not accusing Alice Lee of deicide of some other benevolent figure. You know, it's not like you killed the god that we worship. It's you killed the chance for all of us to have been gods. So
That's a crazy thought.
yeah, like it's a little more it's a little more direct, feels more directed at each individual citizen. um
Absolutely. Absolutely.
and in addition to that, you know, this is the queen without secrets. This is the queen that
Yeah.
proclaimed there will be no secrets amongst the Awoken, and for there to have been this huge, you know, looming dark secret of the queen to be brought to light like this, it also like throws everything else she's ever done into question.
Right.
um so needless to say, we get a war between the Awoken peoples. And
And remember, as much as they're immortal, they can still be killed.
they can still die from outside sources.
Yeah.
So that leads us into the next chapter here, where we see just how terrible a war can be when you're talking about immortals. It wasn't supposed to be like this, Alice Lee whispers as far down below the ship spire the funeral barges on the Lake of Leaves burst into magnesium white fire. The voices of the paladins rise on summer wind, first choral and then the single keening strains of grief pains sung by lovers and close friends. They are singing their lost comrades into death. One of the 891 fell today, shot down by a matter laser, a coherent boson weapon. There was almost nothing left to burn. Matter lasers are the kind of appalling Maltech weapon Alice thought she'd locked up in the ship spire's vaults. She'd armed a few of her paladins with them, just a few, women she couldn't bear to lose. The thought that one might have defected to the Diaserum breaks her heart. It wasn't supposed to go this way, Alice repeats. She has not yet had a confidant in nigh on 50 years. There is no one to whom she can show any doubt. I promise you, it wasn't. I know. Mara says. The Utex found her and plucked her from her mountain top with one of the ship Spire's VTOL aircraft, which Alice had, until the war, only ever used as an ambulance. The mission was to carry on the human journey in a new world. Alice paces the wooden deck that clings to the ship Spire airlock, nearly a kilometer above the lake. To build a better society on the principles of equality, knowledge, and peace. I have the charter, Mara. It remembers what I cannot. We were never meant to give up our bodies or shine like stars or she groans in frustration and clutches the railing. Or whatever it is that the Deacerum thinks I denied them. She thinks you denied them even the capability to imagine godhood. Alice looks sharply back at the other woman. Did you start this, Mara? Nothing has one beginning, Mara says. Did she come to you on your mountaintop and ask you what I did? Did you answer her? Is that why she is so convinced that I... She swallows against the bitter taste of her enemy's words. Enslaved her in mere humanity? I didn't have to tell her. Mara's white hair stirs in the hot wind. A herd of black horses crosses the northern horizon, all born of Shipspire wombs, chased by a long-legged huntress and her collie. You don't keep enough secrets, Your Majesty. The Deacerum might have opened any one of your texts and read the story you tell. We were born when a great ship fell into a pearl of shattered space. I awoke first, and in my awakening I collapsed the potential of the void and into a form I understood. Who can read that truth and not hear arrogance? Mara asked. Alice thought Mara might say that. Alice also thought Mara might try to push her off the balcony. But she now knows that was a petty fear. Mara is not the Diacerum. Mara knows the unthinkable value of even a single awoken life. Why do you love lies so much? She asks Mara. Not lies. The pale radiance of Mara's eyes, the flush of violet stain around them. Secrets. Even if everyone shared a single truth, all our minds would produce different versions of the truth. We speak these subtruths, and like flowers of different seed, the subtruths compete for the light of our attention. In time, only the fiercest and most provocative strains remain. They're not always the truest. Better to keep secrets, Your Majesty. Better to tend a great mystery and so starve the flowers before they can grow. That is how I would be queen. Down below, the lake of leaves shimmers in the crater carved by Shipspire's mushroom prow. One by one, the funeral boats are going out. I want to end this war, Alice Lee tells the second Awoken. I want to negotiate a peace, and I will need your mother's help. What would you ask in exchange? Mara smiles graciously and bows her head. Nothing but a future boon. And that is the end of that chapter.
God, this is a this is a scene, man. This is a. I mean, there's so much in this. They're. I picture this as like a very Viking funeral like
Yeah.
scene,
Mm-hmm.
right? Ships on a lake with bodies on them, launching arrows into them to light the ships on fire and thus burning them. That's very and it's interesting to see that symbology there even in this utopian world. There's a lot of things that are definitely starting to carry over from the old world into this world. Even the texts that Alice Lee wrote that Mara quotes to her, the whole We were born when a great ship fell into a pearl of shattered space. I awoke first, and in my awakening, I collapsed the potential of this void into a form. Like all of that, I was the first. I was the greatest. I mean, the fact that she's written her own like what, Bible. Is that?
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah, Alice Lee's a little arrogant. But yeah, it just like I absolutely love this scene.
And additionally, it really points out something that both Mara and Alice understand. They talk about Mara knows the unthinkable value of even a single awoken life. To kill an immortal awoken, an immortal, is not just to kill something that has a limited lifespan is terrible in its own right, but you are not just denying the world whatever the next 50 years or however many years of that thing, of that being, that person's lifespan would have been. You are denying the world the eternity that immortal's lifespan would have been, and all the things they would have done, and all the discoveries they would have made, all the good they could have done. And like that is the gravity that is being assigned to these deaths as part of this war.
To each individual life, like that, the gravity of that is, I mean, that's I can see how like even just having one of the 891 fall in battle, and to fall in such a devastating way. I mean, apparently there were these weapons that came with them, these matter weapons that I imagine literally deatomized them, like just on a molecular level. Boop, gone. Like, and now they're in the hands of the people that want to go back. Of the, I'm assuming the 40,000. Like that's kind of dangerous. So there's not even like a body to be buried at sea. Like it's like no wonder Alice Lee's like, I want to end this war. Like whatever it takes, I don't care. And that's anytime someone starts a deal with whatever it takes, you know the other half of that deal is something important. Like it's gonna be something big.
Well, and Mara asks, like, just give me a favor of my choosing in the future.
Just a favor in the future. That's all I want.
Yep.
That's a and for an immortal, a favor in the future. I mean, that's forever.
Yep, that is constantly being in the back of your head, going,
Yeah.
when is that going to get called in? What is it going to be?
Yeah. And I also like the whole like Alice looks at Mara and is like, you know, why do you love lies so much? And Mara's like, no, not lies, secrets. Like the idea of a secret is so great that like the flowers that would bloom from that secret are starved before they can even get a chance to bloom. Like I love that idea. Mara's very, very philosophical and very, and it, again, I think this plays back to her idea of like conversation, like the spoken word is a shitty way to communicate. Like it's filled with nuances and falsehoods and whatever. But she's the way she talks is very, very regal. Like I can't think of any other way to put it.
And
it's very calculated.
And it's interesting. Mara is essentially telling her, like, I would rule in such a way that nobody knows the truth from me, because the truth will spin into, you know, twisted versions of what is really true. And if I just play the mysterious ruler that no one ever, you know, gets an answer out of, then those twisted rumors can never start. And I see that as a more valuable way of ruling and leading than trying to be open and honest and risking all of that honesty being twisted in some unintended way.
Yep. Yeah. It's also interesting that like the last part of this one that I want to talk about was she doesn't ask Mara to help in the war. She asks for Mara's mom, Osana.
You know, the
Like
negotiator.
the negotiator. Like I imagine that as like the same thing as like any type of like Hollywood movie. It's like the negotiator, or like, you know, the she just walks in and says just like a single word, and the other side is just in tears, crying. Well, whatever you want, I don't care. Just do it. That's what I think of Osana as.
Yeah. So,
in other words, no, that's not what she is.
well, we get a little peek at Osana as a negotiator here in the very next chapter. So,
No, it's the negotiator. I'm trying to get that one to stick.
uh-huh.
You got to say it with gusto. The negotiator.
I mean,
yeah.
it's not like a WWE wrestler here.
Here comes Osana, the negotiator. now she is.
Yeah,
now she runs the Fight Club with Uldren. That's it.
All right. Well, with that little headcanon in mind, we'll read the next one here.
Yes.
So this is chapter 14, Fideicide 3. To end a world with a shot, or pin eternity on a blade, to see your sisters lost to rot, and their undone works decayed. The death of an immortal wastes the infinite potential of all they might become, and an immortal's grief and murder guilt left unattended will never fade. Thus it became known to those who fought in the Theodicy War that they had committed an incomparable evil, but that they could not confront their own responsibility. So they rose up in wrath against those who had given them cause, whether by caging them in flesh bodies or drawing blood over grievances. The war continued by spear and bow, by knife and scalpel, by old machine and new invention. Ever did the Diacerum's faithful call for the unawaring of Queen Alice Lee. Now there entered into the Diacerum's camp Osana, mother of Mara, famed for her skill in negotiating contested land. She had come with her son, Uldren, who could win a place in any camp for his beauty and for the regal crow-eagle that alighted on his shoulder. I come from Mara, said Osana, whose heart has frozen in her chest. If you will end the killing, she will tell you any secret that you desire. For his part, Uldren went among the Diacerum's warriors and spread ill tidings of Mara's knowledge, saying, Mara remembers how the queen led us here out of chaos and saved us from the twin blindness of darkness and light. Mara knows what the queen keeps secret. Mara has seen the strife in our souls, the clash from which we were made. We could not ever have been gods with this flaw in us. Rather, we were made from this schism. For as all life is born from energy gradient, as life in the world before was born from the gradient between hot proton-rich vent water and cold seawater, we were born of the shadow line at the edge of light and dark. We are tremors in that fault. Forever will that schism lead us. Hearing this new heresy, the Ichalists were seized with rapture and scattered to the points of the compass, telling all they met, We are the yield of a mighty engine. We could never have been gods. Like diamonds we were crushed into being. Like diamonds, we hold flaws. Meanwhile, Osana spoke to the Diacerum, who was also heartsick from the killing, and who longed to withdraw from the world and seek transcendence within. There is no were-guild for the murder of an immortal, Osana counseled her. You must become a teacher or a midwife and devote yourself to the enrichment of new lives. But Diasarum craved secret knowledge, and she sought Mara upon the mountaintop. And here she vanished. If she was ever known again, it was not by the name Diasarum. When there was peace, Queen Lee ruled the Awoken for a time, but the guilt of the war lay heavy upon her, and after an age of peace and progress, she abdicated to a new queen. And that's the end of that chapter.
So I like this one too, especially now with the headcanon of Osana the negotiator and her trusty sidekick, Uldren the unyielding. Like, yeah, no, that's headcanon now. I imagine them in like luchador masks with capes and and little onesies. 100%. All the frilliness and the and the shininess. Walking in camp to camp, and Osana's like, hear the words of the great Uldren the unyielding, and Uldren's just walking up to all the warriors. Listen to me, people. This war sucks.
So this is a really good point. Osana and Diasarum didn't really end this conflict.
Yeah.
Osana gave Diasarum the option of you can surrender by devoting your life to enriching future generations to make up for all the lives that are lost because of you, essentially.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But even that wouldn't have ended this war, because they talk about like this fight was continuing even though Diasarum was ready to be done with it. She was just as heartbroken over this death as Alice Lee was. But rage and grief continued to fuel the fight, and it was Uldren carrying the words of Mara, going around and telling them, look, we shouldn't be fighting because we never could have been gods. Like this deicide is non-existent because we are too flawed to have ever have been able of godhood. And it was that idea, that like new heresy, as they called it, that spread through the ranks and gave them a reason to give up the fight.
And that's like, I mean, to me, that to be able to speak like that and just be like, look, we were never meant to be gods in the first place, and for the people to just kind of be like, well, shit, maybe he's right, like, yeah, Osana the negotiator and her tag team partner Uldren the unyielding win again.
The other important bit here is that although Diasarum was given kind of that ultimatum by Osana, she chose to seek out Mara to gain more knowledge, more secret knowledge, and was never seen from again.
Yeah. And I like how they put it there too. Like, it doesn't say she was killed. It just says she vanished. If she was ever known again, it was not by the name Diasarum.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was an interesting one there. I was very intrigued by that. I also like how Uldren describe, like, when he's talking about Mara's knowledge, how he describes how they were born, right? The twin blindness of darkness and light. You can't just look at darkness as like pure darkness is blinding, as in you can't see anything in it. Pure light is blinding on the opposite end of the spectrum. It's just so bright you literally can't see anything. And for some reason, I'm remembering an entry somewhere. I want to say it was the Drifter.
So that entry, I had the same exact thought. That entry was a dialogue between the Drifter and the Emissary of the Nine in the prophet, in the prophecy dungeon.
Where she shows her, like,
she shows
the world
him,
has to be a balance of two.
Yep.
You can't have one or the other.
She teleports him, or maybe physically, maybe just mentally, but she puts him into the experience of a world of pure light, and he can't see anything, and these things are like running into him, and they're screaming at him for him to end them because they can't die. And then the opposite, a realm of pure dark, and he still can't see anything, and all it is just like this overwhelming smell of rot and decay forever. And eventually they pull him out of his visions or whatever.
The whole time he's just shitting all over himself. What the hell touched me? What is doing that? Get off of me!
Yeah, in classic Drifter fashion. But yeah. That's the twin blindness as a representation of it.
I really like that. And then like the idea of like we were born of the shadow line at the edge of dark and light. We are the tremors in that fault. Forever will that schism lead us. So I mean, literally just saying like we are the gray. We are the in between. Not fully light, not fully dark. We're just that idea of gray, that idea of a middle ground is what leads us as a people. I really like the words that they chose here.
Yeah. So, and at the end of all this, the war is ended. And Alice Lee continues to lead for a time. I think probably to stabilize things and get things back, back in motion in a positive direction. And then she gives up her position to a new queen. And that brings us to chapter 15, which is heresiology, which, as you might guess from the name of that, is the study of heresy in the history of religion.
See, now that one made sense.
That one made sense, yes.
That word made sense. The rest of these we have to do some more Googling.
But okay, so this one goes like this. A woman lives alone on the forest hills above the Feather Barrens. North of her, in a chaos of ravines and clear but fiercely radioactive streams, the hills surrender to high imperial mountains engaged in brutal seismic warfare. For Distributary is a young world and is not settled in its grudges. To the south are the dry lands where the birds of the forest, especially the parrots, go to die. She lives here because one day she will no longer be immortal, and she wants to observe the dignity of death. Up these hills come a man and his mother. The man moves with practiced wariness, but his mother is tired of walking. So she sits down on a giant melon and bellows, "Mara!" A fountain of startled birds shoots up into the dawnlight. Not far away, the woman looks up from the broken body of a juvenile gray parrot and softly says, "Mom?" That night, over the fire, after Mara and Osana talk around the oddness of long separation, Mara, tending the pheasants on their spits, says, "Brother, your eagle killed a parrot today." "He had to hunt," Aldrin says carefully. "You won't forbid him his last pleasures, will you?" "You've brought him here to die?" Mara wants to leap up and hug her brother out of pity and respect. Many of his raptors have died before this one, but Aldrin has always been grief-stricken and furious at the waste. Now he's accepted what must happen. He has given his bird the respect of choosing its own place and time to pass. "I have," Aldrin says, looking away. Her pride and respect make him a little verklempt. And Mother decided she would come along. A sheer force as powerful as tectonics has divided Mara's heart. She wants to sit down with her mother and ask her everything, but she is afraid of Osana's insight. "What brings you to my little camp, Mother?" "Lies," Osana says. "Lies and secrets, and the girl who didn't want to be my daughter, who doesn't know the difference between them." "I know the difference between a girl and a daughter," Mara says, purposefully misunderstanding. The drip pan sizzles beneath golden meat. Her stomach growls. Your daughter picks up your baton at the end of the race and goes on living the life you've taught her. You wouldn't want that, Mother, but then I'd be all your fault. That's true, Hosanna sighs, but you know what I mean. Aldrin looks between the two of them, frowning. Mom, what is this? It's your sister about to admit she's behind it all, aren't you, Mara? She unimpales the pheasants from the spits and neatly licks hot grease off her hands. If she spoke, she might scream in terror. What does that mean, behind it all? Does Osana know? The Ichalists are her creation, her mother tells her brother. The Diacerum was her pawn. She allowed the Theodicy War because she was afraid that we'd be too comfortable here, and also so that Queen Alice would need her help politically. Mara couldn't afford to be the most radical dissident. She had to seem moderate for her beliefs to thrive. Isn't that right, Mara? Mara puts a hand into the warm soil to keep herself from slumping in relief. Mother doesn't know it all. Shall I carve your portions? She asks, holding the fractal knife politely, blade down. Aldrin has that look. He knows Mara never answers his questions directly. By evading Osana's, it's as if she's saying that the question is really Aldrin's to ask. Looks delicious, but Mother does make me curious. Why have you always lived away from the rest of us, Mara? The mountaintop, I understand. You had a brand new night sky to chart, but why now? Why go into the woods like a hermit, a heretic? For the same reason she lived on the hull. For the same reason she can never allow Aldrin to really reach her. There is power in remove, and also safety from the belittling politics of temporal power, which reveal the mighty as unforgivably ordinary and petty. The Awoken have a queen, because a queen can be a mystery. I remember the day I was born, she says. Do you, brother? He flinches from her eyes. He remembers Yang Li Wei and the tether into darkness. He remembers how gravity stretched them into agonized ribbons of flesh. He remembers the truth not even Alice Lee may be allowed to know. Mara sees the agonizing moment, the cyclic revelation, when he thinks of her crime, allows it to pierce him like a spit, and buries it deep again. Osana takes her portion of pheasant meat and rolls it in the bowl of sweet cooked nuts her daughter has prepared. The stars are coming out over the mountains, and the forest birds sing. This place is good, she says. This world, whatever you remember of our lives before, Mara, I know they cannot have been this good. No, Mara says, but you were both with me, and I hope you always will be. Always, her brother promises. Eat well. Mara claps her hands and stands. Tomorrow, we journey. Where? Her mother asks. I have star charts to share, and heresies to tend to, and a new eagle crow to find for her bereft brother. That is the end of that chapter.
God, this is. Whew. Whew. The tension is palpable in this one.
So
yeah.
We get a couple things here. We get Osana has put together the pieces of like Mara orchestrated the Theodicy War and the divide in opinion between the Sanguine and the Ecalists, and was the puppet master behind the Deacerum, but she hasn't put together this grander secret that Mara is, despite all these things she's figured out, Mara is relieved that she doesn't know whatever this other secret is.
Oh, and the secret is so juicy.
And apparently it
But we're
is a
not there yet.
secret that Aldrin also knows
Yes.
and is staying loyal to his sister and burying it whenever it comes to his
I
mind.
love that. I love that. It's that continually chasing his sister. Like even after, I mean, I even after the living on the hull of the ship, and he's constantly, I don't want to say inner shadow, because it's not, I don't think it's that. I don't think it's the, like, living in fear, living in this constant shadow of oh, the mysterious Mara or anything. He is constantly chasing her. He is struggling and trying to keep up with her, to
Yeah.
to to always be there for her. And I love that, like, you know, this world, whatever you remember of our lives before Mara, I know they cannot have been this good, is what her mom says. And then Mara says, no, but you were both with me, and I hope you always will be. And only her brother answers back with always.
Yes.
Her mom doesn't answer back. And I think that's an interesting, like, what is going on here?
Mm-hmm. This
So
is
yeah,
a little foreshadowing.
absolutely. And then there's the whole thing with the bird, right? Like, it obviously, in today's game, we see Aldrin as Crow. Like,
Right.
Aldrin is dead. Crow is the guardian, um, and he's always mentioned as a bird, as a something, and we even see it here. Like, he has eagles that he uses to hunt with, and before he would see them die, and he was like, well, this is just a waste. And so now he's starting to accept that, okay, these things will die, but I want them to die on their terms. I
Yeah.
want them to die doing what they love doing, and that's being the hunter, being the predator, not just a bump on a log wasting away.
Yeah. So, and Mara makes this, we have a journey to make. Uh, she has star charts to share. Apparently, is her excuse anyway. Um, and that kind of leads us into chapter 16.
Well, and I was going to add on to that too, real quick.
Yeah.
Uh, that last paragraph. I have star charts to share. That's where she ends her
Yes.
her speaking bit. Then internally is where she says, and heresies to tend to, and a new eagle crow to find for her bereft brother. So, like, obviously Mara is like,
She has
even
ulterior
at this point
motives.
in
Yeah.
time, right, we're seeing scheming Mara be scheming Mara even at this point in time. Like, all throughout Destiny, the game itself, the part that we as the Guardian have gotten to play and interact with Mara, there's always been a scheme. There's always been this thing in the background that's just constantly there, but it's like right at the edge of our fingertips, but we don't quite know what it is, and then it slips away, and then we get almost to reach it, it slips away again. And we're even seeing that here in the distributary, um, of this secrets. It's that's definitely like the main thing that we're seeing here is
Yeah.
secrets.
Yeah. So, this brings us to chapter 16, which is entitled Imponent, uh, which means a person who imposes a duty.
I'm glad you Googled all these words,
Someone's got to.
right?
So, this one goes like this. In later days, the power of the queen waned, and the Distributary was ruled by scholars who sent their knights on mad quests to test the consistence of reality. These were the Jensum scribes, who traced their origin to Kelda Waj, the All-Teacher, but who were in fact descendants of a band of roving storytellers who traveled across the immense salt glades in a hollering convoy of airboats. Here was their praise of the world. It is sweet watered, and there are no poisons upon it. The temper of the climate is even. Great broad-pawed cats stalk the shallow glades, and brilliant blue flamingos promenade upon the flats. The air is thick and warm, suited for flight, and the wind tastes of forest. No dawn has ever been as glorious as the salt glade dawn, and no dusk has ever moved women to weep as deeply as sunset in the Chrysiades. Corsairs sport upon the open seas, and where they waylay freighters rather than each other, they give rumor and assistance to their prey in proportion to the quality of the chase. Beloved are the stories of young lads and lasses who leap across to the corsair ship for a life of adventure. Beloved also are the terraced farms of the Anadolus, mountains so mighty and so dense with radioactivities that they subside year by year into the crust. Most beloved are the fissioneers who vaulted us to power on a world a world without petrochemicals. May they forgive the many stories of horror we have told in their memory. May they, in particular, forgive the lurid stories of the molten lead reactor and the 12 who were impaled to the ceiling by their control rods and the core that stalked. It is the sanguine truth that we were granted this world by the unconditional mercy of the powers, and that we will never again know fear. But the scribes also recorded their frustration with Mara and Aldrin, who alone out of the 891 were said to have seen creation from the outside. These two wandered the land, gathering lore of portents and prophecies, and all the Icalis who remained from ancient days whispered that soon the day of reckoning would be known, the day when the Awoken would be called to repay their debt. Now in the court of one of the scribes there appeared a woman of stellar height and furious wrath, armed with a bow that could only be strung if she twined it around her body and used her whole mass to bend it. I am Sheer Ido, said the woman, and I accuse Mara of the ancient murder of my lady, the Diaserum. In my saddle I have a weapon with only one death remaining in it. Take me to Mara, and I will use it on her. The scribes consulted, and said to each other that this foul murder might prevent another Theodicy war. So they gave Sheer Ido all their knowledge to hunt Mara. And that's the end of chapter 16.
Oh, the beginning of the Jumps Scribes. my beloved Ashramir.
And I find it kind of interesting because we know Ashramir is very much the like, you know, he's the crazy professor, wants to test everything, has to have the, you know, the scientific results at all costs. But the telling of the original scribes talking about their adventures across the world are very romantic, are very bard like, you know, weaving this tale of, you know, of beautiful locales and glorious adventures of these corsairs, and like it's interesting because they've got things like forgive the many stories of horror we have told in their memory, of the core that stalked, and the 12 who were impaled to the ceiling. Like, they have their own myths and horror stories that they're referencing here that are internal to their culture, that they don't explain in this book and probably never will. But like, it's cool to see references to like this kind of this internal culture that we really haven't been exposed to in this book up till now.
Yeah. I really like it. I do like that part about the because I think of this as like in the sense of like a nuclear reactor.
Yeah.
You know, may they
Mm-hmm.
in particular forgive the lurid stories of the molten lead reactor and the 12 who were impaled to the ceiling by their control rods and the core that stalked. In my mind, this is a reactor that went nuclear, like it had a nuclear meltdown,
Mm-hmm.
and the control rods literally shot out of the central reactor and impaled 12 people on the ceiling and then gained sentience.
That was how I took it
And
too.
that is fucking scary as shit. Like,
The Awoken have
no,
some horror
thank you.
stories. I'm like, oh.
No, thank you. I also think then there's the funny side of it where I think of like, you know, if this truly is the beginning of the Jensen scribes or the Jensen scribes and the days of the bard and the storytelling, I think of like, you know, I try to think of like a bard poem in Asher Mir's voice, and it's just the assistant came today. It sucked because the assistant was shit, and he didn't know shit, and I was the greatest being on planet. The end.
Sterile neutrinos.
Sterile neutrinos. That's all it is. That's his entire poem.
So I see you got a hold of Asher's diary as well. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. he has no instruments or anything with him. It's literally just him screaming at stuff, being stupid, like "Voo voo Zayla."
Oh no, Asher would be the one that goes to what do they call those? The crash poetry or whatever. Uh slam
Yeah,
poetry. Slam poetry, I think is what it
yeah.
is. That's Asher's kind of bard telling
He
stories.
gets up on stage. And he's just, this place is too dark. All of you suck. Goodbye. That's
Snap,
it. That's
snap,
his whole poem. Snap, 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 snap.
Oh,
Shit. I
but
wasn't ready for that one.
so I think
man.
more important than our poetic waxings on Asher Mir,
I love it.
is we get introduced to a very important character here by the name of Sheer Ido.
Oh. Oh.
Now, Sheer shows up in a few places that are still in game. Actually, there is a statue to her in the Shattered Throne dungeon, and if anyone has ever used the Wish Ender bow, that is Sheer Ido's bow.
That is the bow that's described right here. A bow that could only be strung if she twined it around her body and used her whole mass to bend it. Literally standing and Myth and I are both I think Myth is definitely a better archer than I am. I
More
cheat and
practice,
use
maybe.
compound bows. More practice. There you go.
Yeah.
But Myth, you use a recurve. Like this is a huge ass, and this isn't a recurve. This is a longbow.
Yeah, no, this is a longbow. Yeah, I shoot Olympic recurve. But yeah, even by longbow standards, what they're describing is something of like monstrous proportions.
It's huge. This thing unstrung has got to be, it's got to be 8 foot long.
Probably more, honestly.
I mean it's huge freaking bow. And like even the proportions in game, like don't, like if you see someone with Wish Ender on their back in the tower or something like that, like those proportions don't, it's enormous there, but I think even that is like a shrunk down version of it, like
Probably.
the Guardians after they've done their which I'm really bummed that this quest is no longer in the game, because I thought it was a really fun one that you kind of do a little interacting with Toland, and of course Toland being the evil little shit that he is, does all of his stuff, and then like you go through this whole thing in the Shattered Throne, and you find these arc balls, and you're bringing them to the holder, the Awoken statues that are holding them, and placing them on the pedestal to create this whatever between them. And then you get to the statue of Shiraido, and she's literally holding the bow, and she finally allows you to take it. Because up until that point, like if you're still on the quest and you haven't gotten to the point of actually completing it, it's just there, kind of looming in front of you. Like, yeah, you could have this, but you got to do something for it. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like I love this bow, and it's yeah, yep, love Shiraido, love this bow. Full
Yep.
stop.
Yep. I wish there was more reason to use Wishender in PvE content, honestly. But
I'm hoping because and this was again not to stray from our lore talk into mechanic talk, uh, but the last Twab mentioned putting, possibly next season we're going to get more champion mods on exotics. I'd love to see either piercing or unstoppable or something on it. Like I think that'd be kind of cool.
oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's a perfect candidate for probably anti-barrier, just because it's
Yep,
it's meant to be like a overpowering
a
bow.
piercing shot, right?
Yeah.
Either that or like unstoppable, like the way Leviathan's breath is, right? Like that,
Mm-hmm.
if you knock it up and you let it go to full knock and then release it on a perfect draw or something like that, maybe it does a good unstoppable hit or something like that. Like that. Yeah. No, I like that. I like that idea. Definitely the piercing more the unstoppable, the more that I think about it, because it's like even the bow itself says it over penetrates targets and does 2 hits, one on entry and one on exit. So
Yeah.
this is a powerful fucking bow.
Absolutely.
This thing is gnarly.
So with the thought of Shir Ido coming to these scholars who have more power than the queen at this time, saying, "I've got a gun with one bullet, and I'm claiming that Mara murdered my my previous commander." I think she just says like comrade.
My lady, the Diacerum.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm claiming Mara murdered the Diacerum. I have a gun with one bullet in it. I demand life for life. Show me where she is.
Yep.
And the scholars are like, well, we've already been down this path once before and it did not end well. So
It sucked.
maybe if we just let her do it, we'll lose one life instead of many.
That's it. I mean, we've already talked about the gravity of losing one awoken life, and these Jensen scribes are just like, yeah, it's probably worth it.
And I think it's worth realizing how much time has passed at this point from
Yeah.
when the Awoken first entered and named the Distributary to now. And this next entry gives a little hint into how much time that has actually been. By using people's memories as a gauge. So this is chapter 17, Imponent 2. It goes like this. Carefully, the people of Distributary grew in number. Joyously and constantly, they grew in quality. Those who do not die are as malleable and passionate as the young, as tempered and constant as the mature, and as wise and humble as the best of the old. But as ever the Awoken were troubled by death, it was easy to imagine a world older and harsher than Distributary, a world crowded with competitors where the slow changing and lushly alive Awoken would be helpless beside austere mayfly quick breeders who adapted with every swift generation. Why had the Awoken been spared mortality? Were they, as the Sanguine preached, rewarded for their bravery and fidelity in a past existence? Or were the Ichlis right? Could all the gifts of Distributary, all the milk-bright stars above, all the years of awoken life, be a form of cowardice? Was there an unfought battle down in the center of the awoken soul? A duty yet to be discharged? Queen Naguya Pin restored the monarchy to prominence over the Jensum scribes. This she accomplished after a fateful visit upon the day of the summer solstice by a hooded and masked woman who some whispered was Mara Sov and others the long vanished Diacerum. For 99 years, a rhetorical figure meaning a long time, The queen had been an authority only in the arts and matters spiritual, but Queen Naguya Pin declared that she was now an avowed Ichilist, and that the queen would lead the quest to identify whatever debt the Awoken owed to the cosmos. It was time to pursue a dream beloved to all Awoken, the conquest of space, and the assessment of the true shape and age of their universe. The ancient court of the queen gave the Jensum scribes a place to lay down their pride and act as equals. Soon the greatest engineers in the world assembled in the queen's court, and whatever wealth and resources they required flowed freely. Great cataracts of men and women spilled around the palace, screaming of ramjets and aposes deep into the night, then awakening to pots of thick black coffee to mumble about metric tensors and cosmic microwave anisotropy. Into this feast of ideas came Sheer Ido, searching for the woman who had turned Queen Pin to Ichilism. Sheer smoldered with an ancient fury, for another thing that the immortal may nurture is everlasting vendetta. Sheer Ido deduced who among the queen's court must be a disguised Marasov. She followed the hooded figure to her laboratory and watched Mara go to work soldering a makeshift bolometer to search for signs of primordial gravity waves. Sure Ido's fury and grief wedded themselves against Mara's thoughtless grace and ancient beauty, until at last her heart unseamed itself and spilled its hot blood in a shout. "Mara Sov!" she cried, throwing down her Maltech matter laser between them. "I cannot live while you live, but I cannot bear to kill you. I challenge you to a duel to the agony. I will fight your most beloved companion to the death, and leave you forever maimed, or else die in the attempt." Mara could not refuse this challenge. She summoned Aldrin, and with a ruthlessness that no longer frightened her to wield, she told Aldrin that he would stand for her in battle to the death against Sheer Ido. "We cannot put it all upon a single fight," Aldrin said to the ancient vendetta bearer. "Too much would be left to chance. Such an old grudge deserves to be tested well. I propose we fight with blade, with rifle, and with fifth-generation air superiority fighters." Sheer Ido accepted these terms. And that's the end of that chapter.
So this one is definitely like the. I mean, they try to give a timeline of how long this place has been around. even here for 9 and 90 years, a rhetorical figure meaning a long time. Like as the Distributary is ancient now at this point. Like it's I say ancient. It's a shit ton of time has passed. Like we'll get to an exact number eventually, but this place is bordering on the ancient now. But for an immortal, that's who cares? You know, a 1,000 years can be a second in their life. They don't care. They're immortal.
Well, and I think what is an important thing to think about here is that the way some of this is being described, where, why had the Awoken been spared mortality? It's as if the general populace of the Awoken is becoming, and I guess they do say that the people of the Distributary have been growing in number. Anyone that was born in the Distributary would not have memory of Alice Lee and the original commandments, or whatever they called them, and like the original story of them coming into existence. So
Interesting.
This may be indicative of the population is starting to either maybe not a majority, but there's a large enough chunk of the population that were not around during those initial years
Yeah.
that the answer isn't as concrete anymore as to how they got where they are.
Yeah. Interesting. I never thought of it from that point of view either. Like, I mean, we knew he had the Bible of Alice Lee, but I mean, it seems like this thing has been like ever since Alice Lee abjugated to Nagoya. Now this thing is just lost to. I assume she just took it with her and just nobody read it again. And so now all they have is what the bard stories of the Jensems. You know, like, oh, was the great Queen Alice Lee? She did some stuff and it was awesome. Like, that's it. Like that's what they have to go off of.
Well,
Yeah, no, that's
and I'm guessing her reign is probably marked mostly by the Odyssey War. Is probably what people
absolutely
remember more than anything.
this time of death, this time of great loss.
And additionally, it seems like maybe some of the original tenets of the Awoken as people that were established by Alice Lee aren't followed or aren't as concrete anymore. Specifically, the there will be no secrets amongst the Awoken. You know, she was the queen without secrets. That clearly is not the case anymore.
No, not at all.
So, you know, how much else has fallen to the wayside as time has progressed here? And I'm saying that to also, you know, think about how much time it would take, how much time would have to
Right.
progress to reach that point in the society's like mental state.
And that's an interesting thing there too. So like if we're taking 9 and 90 as a literal, right? So that's almost 1,000 years.
Yeah.
But it's got to be longer than that because even it's saying, you know, that's just rhetorical for a long time. The first paragraph, the people of Distributary grew in number, joyous and continuously they grew in quality. Those who
Right.
did not die were as malleable and passionate as the young, as tempered and constant as the mature, and as wise and humble as the best of the old. So I mean, they like the only thing constant there is the change, and the fact that these people are able to kind of evolve themselves, evolve their thinking. Like, we're immortal. Who cares if we change our idea? If it sucks, we'll go back to the old way. If it's
Mm-hmm.
new, cool, and it works, let's try it out. Like, that's an interesting thought to think that they could just try whatever. Who cares?
Yeah. So, I think this is going to be a good place to end it for tonight.
Well, I'm going to touch one more thing before we do end it.
Okay.
And that's the challenge,
Yes.
to be
Yeah.
issued. Shiraido, she searches out amongst all the people. Okay, that person right there has got to be Mara. Walks up to her and is ready to pull the trigger, like literally gun in hand.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly, you know, like I think of it as like this like dramatic scene of like, you know, Mara's just working on her thing, just doing her whatever, doesn't even notice Shiraido, and then Shiraido's like just pissed in this. The that's the other thing they mentioned too. Sheer smoldered with an ancient fury for another thing that the immortal may nurture is everlasting vendetta. So Sheer's just pissed. You killed my leader. You had to have been the one to have killed her. Like, nobody's ever seen her since. Like, if it's you, it's your fault. This is the whole reason we had this change. You're the one that's whispered Queen Nagoya into changing into an Icolist. Like, whatever. This is like just rage, continuous rage building up in her. And she walks up to her, gets all the way up to her, and just throws the gun down. It's like, I can't even bring myself to kill you. You're too beautiful. You're too perfect. You're too like, I can't even do it. And so I issue the challenge. Bring your most beloved companion. And if I win, cool. You're scarred for life because your most beloved companion is dead. And if I lose, I lose. I'm dead, and you're the rightful victor. And so Mara chooses, of course, Aldrin, the unyielding.
And I think it's good to point out here that not only does Mara choose Aldrin, but she says she summons Aldrin with a ruthlessness that no longer frightens her to wield. She tells him that he will
Yeah.
stand for her in battle to the death. So like
We're starting to see that commanding presence there.
She is used to using Aldrin for her own, her own benefit, and
Yeah.
is no longer feels, fear or regret, presumably, about doing it.
Sure. Yeah. Man, that's a and then the last one here, the last little bit here. Ultra, I still have to laugh about this because the jump just doesn't make any sense. Too much would be left to chance, right? We can't put it all in a single fight. Such an old grudge deserves to be tested well. I propose we fight with blade, rifle, and 5th generation air supporting fighters. Like, what in the hell? What? What in the actual hell?
There's a very important reason. He's being quite cunning here. There's a very good reason
absolutely.
He picked 5th generation air superiority fighters, and that reason is gonna have to wait till next time.
Boom! Cliffhanger. Take it. I love it. I love it. We're getting pretty good at this cliffhanger deal. I like this. This is an awesome story. Like I've always loved this story, The Awoken, and I don't even think we dived this deep when we did it the first time.
No.
And so I'm actually really glad that we're recovering it. Recovering it.
Sure. Yeah.
That's now there. Okay, there's a Marism for you. What is recovering? Am I covering something again? Am I uncovering it? Like I'm gaining back something that I have lost. I'm recovering it, like health.
Well, I'm gonna leave you to ponder that. And
yeah. All right. Well, we definitely have some shout outs to give.
Yes, we do. We do. Let's say we have a number of them that are coming to us from the Apple Podcast reviews.
Yeah.
So I'll pull those up here. The first of those is from a reviewer here. The username Cotin Juckums, I think. Sorry if that's not right.
If y'all are just coming up with these usernames just to make us try to pronounce them, good on you.
Yeah, no harm, no foul. I'll try my best.
Point in your favor.
But they were kind enough to leave us a 5-star review. Thank you very much. Saying this podcast is a must for any Destiny player. I love learning about how the lore is tied into the story of the games, so when I get to something, I can see how and what the piece of lore has been through. Great dynamic between the two hosts. I love how you both give the deep defined version and then try to give the dummy version, so it's easy to understand to keep these episodes coming. Thank you. We
I like giving the dummy version.
Well, and certainly for some of the things they talk about, especially when they get very like metaphysical or metaphorical, like I sometimes have to explain it out loud just to truly understand what they're trying to say.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that helps us as much as it does you.
It's not as easy as it looks. Yeah. Who else we got?
Yeah, so we have another 5-star review from Gunner7. And they say, honestly, the best Destiny lore content I've ever listened to. The banter and back and forth theories is so creative and entertaining. I've listened to their Book of Sorrows and Light vs. Dark episodes twice, which is like 25 hours. I think it's actually longer than that, so good on you.
It's a lot longer than that.
It helps add so much meaning to the game when I play it. I hope one day they can have Bife or Mylan be a guest because this podcast is on that level, if not better. That is very high praise. Thank you very much.
That's the dream.
That would be amazing.
That's the dream. Well, I tell you what, if somebody's listening to this and they also listen to Mylan and Bife, maybe throw a tag out. I'm not gonna do it because I'm too freaking scared to. Maybe they'll listen to our stuff and then it'll explode from there.
Who knows?
Exponential growth is totally sustainable, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. No,
It is not.
say it is not. Those guys put a ton of work and effort into what they do as well. They are
Oh my God, yes.
definitely
Their
been an
production value is
inspiration.
infinitely higher than ours.
Yes.
We're just two dudes with some free recording stuff. They have full on studios, I think. Like,
I mean, they do it for a living, so. But
right. One of them is literally help curate the books that we're using.
but no, that's the dream. That would be awesome to even
that would be awesome.
even have a opportunity for discussion with one of those guys would be cool. So
I don't know that I'd survive that. I would just squeal like a little girl the whole time and just wet myself and walk away. Be like, all right, I'm done. That's end of life. Life goal met.
But we have one more shout out tonight. That comes to us also from the Apple Podcast reviews. Another 5-star from username Whoopty Freakin' Do. Thank you.
Another that. So now there's. I feel like that's the 2 level of usernames that we get to see. We get to see like the most complicated. Like, I have no idea how to even try to pronounce this, and I'm gonna butcher it. To Whoopty Freakin' Do, Hootie McBooty, and Astro Milf Queen of Thoughtland. Like, I love the dynamic between the ranges that we have here.
But Whoopty says this for us. He says, "This is a well done lore podcast. I enjoy the reading of a lot of lore I love, but don't always get around to reading. I do enjoy the discussions about the entries read and how they pick a subject and really dig through it. They get better every week. Mic quality, lore discussions, and the like has gotten continuously better. Thanks, guys." Thank you. That's definitely our goal is to try and
the mic quality one is that's a tough one sometimes.
that one can be a little difficult sometimes. Not necessarily because of hardware, although that has changed over the course of when we started, but also just because technology doesn't always want to work how you want it to.
Tell us how you feel about the Discord app on an iDevice, Smith.
Oh, don't get me started.
We were trying to have a discussion beforehand, and it just did not want to give him any type of input at all. It was so bad.
It was very unhappy with me, and I was equally unhappy with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so thank you, everyone that left us a review. That's very kind of you. Everyone that didn't leave a review but is still listening to us, thank you just as much. You guys are awesome and what keep us going. I say if you want to reach out in some fashion, there are of course the Apple Podcast reviews, like the ones we just read. We also have a Twitter. You can reach us at Myths and Stories with a Z instead of an S at the beginning of Stories. Same name as the show. We monitor that pretty frequently as well, and we'll go through and respond if anyone has feedback or has a thought about lore we've covered or something like that. We are totally open to any respectful discussions there. Also, I want to point out, I'm not omitting Spotify reviews out of spite. Spotify reviews are literally not available for our podcast yet because it does not have enough listens. So this is not Apple favoritism. It's not an option on Spotify. So
yep. We keep looking everywhere for them, and when we find them, we give you a shout out back, and because that's I like if it's not there, like obviously I can't pull from nothing.
Yeah,
so that's kind of a bummer.
Someday maybe if we get enough listens going on the Spotify platform, that will open up as something that's available. But in the meantime, if you reach out to us anywhere else, you may hear your comment with a shout out at the end of a future episode.
Yeah. Well, I guess I still have to give a thank you. So I'm going to give a preemptive thank you to whoever does the math on the doubling and see if we get to 9 shy of 40,900, or however close we can get to that number. I know the math there is going to take like 2 seconds. It's just 2 with a certain number of exponents on it. I get it. I know how binary works. Thanks. Um,
He's just lazy.
I'm just lazy. That's literally all it is. I'm just lazy. Myth does all the research. I'm just here to bounce ideas off of him and follow along. No. So that'll be one preemptive thank you. A second preemptive thank you is to whoever finds the Lorien tree of Uldren being pulled from the ether, his consciousness actively being pulled where he couldn't form himself in the Distributary.
That one is gonna
So
bug me until
it
I
is.
find it or
Myth
someone
is
else
never gonna
finds it.
find it.
Because I know it's there. I know it exists. I remember reading this. I don't know where
And
it is.
it could just be the dialogue from the Sever mission. Like that might be the only lore entry for it.
Nah,
But if there
I
is an
know there was
actual
a
lore
written
entry
entry.
somewhere,
I know there was a
if
written
there's
entry.
if it could be in the D1 grimoires, it could be on a gun, it could be on a ghost ship, on a sparrow, on a ship, a ghost ship. Did I just say ghost ship?
We know what
It could
you
be on
meant.
a ghost, comma, ship, comma. See, this is where punctuation is important. Nope, not gonna say that one. Myth, you got anything else?
No, I think that does it.
Alrighty. Well, then from all of us lore nerds to all of you guardians out there, we'll see you next week.